In this video, we're going to be looking at a CloudFormation template utilizing Amazon Web Services to create the cloud infrastructure we can see in the diagram here. So you can be seeing that we have a region. Inside that region, we have a VPC or virtual private cloud. Inside that VPC, we have two availability zones, Zone A and Zone B. Within each zone, we have a private subnet and a public subnet. We also have the two private subnets in a subnet group, and we have the public subnet connected to the internet gateway for public access. So let's take a look at the CloudFormation template that creates this infrastructure in Amazon Web Services. So CloudFormation templates in AWS can be coded in JSON or YAML. In this particular case, the code is in YAML, and we've called it stack.yaml. So first up, we need the template format version, which can be obtained from the AWS website. We have a short description. Then we have the metadata section. We have a parameters section. We have a resources section. And finally, we have a outputs section. So let's have a look at these a bit more in detail. The metadata section customizes the user interface in Amazon Web Services console upon loading this template for deploying the template in the AWS management console. We have a number of different sections within the metadata section. We have parameter groups and parameter labels. Inside parameter groups, we have a network configuration, EC2 configuration, and a RDS configuration. EC2 is the Elastic Compute Cloud Service, and RDS is the Relational Database Service. And we're defining a number of parameters in each one of these. These are connected to these parameter labels here. So we can see we have VPC CIDR block, which has an associated label here. Below that, we have the parameters themselves. So these are connected. For example, VPC CIDR is connected to here, which is connected to here. And that is the same for all the rest of these labels. And we'll see that in action when we load this template into AWS, how this populates the graphical user interface that we interact with. We've set the default on some of these parameters or all of these parameters. So for the VPC itself, it has a CIDR block of this, which gives us a IP range from here to here, which is 65,536 IP addresses. Similarly, for the public subnet, we have a CIDR block, which gives us an IP range here. We have a private subnet with a CIDR block. For the second availability zone, we have a CIDR block there and another CIDR block for the private subnet or the second availability zone. We need a AMI or Amazon Machine Image. We'll see how we can change this value in the console, AWS console, upon loading this template. We have an instance type for the EC2 or Elastic Compute Service. We have a RDS instance class for the Relational Database Service. We have the RDS engine, which is defaulted to MySQL, but has options for these other ones as well. We need a RDS master username, which we've defaulted to admin, which can be changed upon loading this template via AWS, and we'll see that in a minute. We have the RDS password, which we haven't given, and we're going to directly type that into the AWS console, but we've stipulated a description here of what it needs to be, and we'll see these descriptions populating in the graphical user interface in AWS. And we have a key name for the key pair that we need to create for SSH connection. So beneath the parameters section, this will be shown in the graphical user interface. In AWS, we have a resources section. So the resources section defines the actual AWS resources that will be provisioned. First, we have the VPC that will be created. It's referencing, using this code here, the value VPC CIDR, which is stated up in the parameters section here. So it's going to reference this CIDR block here. And similarly for any other resources where we see this reference here. So we're referencing the VPC in this particular case, which is here. We have the internet gateway, which I displayed here. We're attaching that gateway and we're referencing the VPC. So it attaches to the VPC. We have a public subnet A, private subnet A, public subnet B, and a private subnet B. So those two availability zones, zone A and zone B. Once again, we're referencing the VPC that we're creating, so it creates these public and private subnets in the VPC that we are creating above here. It's also referencing with the public and private subnets, referencing the CIDR blocks. So you can see here we have public subnet CIDR, which is defined in the parameters section up here. So that's going to reference or obtain that CIDR block there that we define in the parameters section. We need a public route table, or a route table for the public subnets. So we're creating that there, once again referencing the VPC. We need a public route for that public route table, and we're defining that here as allowing all IP addresses. Once again, we're referencing the public route table here. Public subnet A, route table association, and public subnet B, route table association. So we're referencing the public subnet B and the public subnet A and the public route table there. We're creating an EC2 security group, so this is like a virtual firewall. We're allowing HTTP, HTTPS and SSH protocols, so 22 for SSH, 80 for HTTP and 443 for HTTPS. Normally we'll restrict this IP range for SSH for security reasons, but we're allowing all IP addresses for 80, port 80 and port 443 for public access for the likes of a website. We have the relational database or RDS security group, referencing once again the VPC, and we're restricting it to port 3306 and can only communicate with the EC2 security group, which is here. We're creating the EC2 instance itself, referencing the public subnet, so we're creating this instance in the public subnet A as per the diagram. We're referencing the parameters, image ID and the key name, which is up in the parameters section that we saw before. And we're also referencing the EC2 security group or the virtual firewall. We're also creating the RDS instance, once again in the diagram here, referencing the associated parameters and other parts of the resources. We're allocating 20 gigabytes of storage, and we're not backing up because we've defined it as 0 here, so no backups. If we want backups, we need this number to be greater than 0. For the security groups, we're referencing the RDS security group. We're also creating the subnet group, which we can see here. For the private subnets are in a group. That is created here. So private subnet A and subnet B. And we're referencing that subnet group here when we're creating the RDS instance. And we're allowing multi-availability zones for high availability or redundancy. So the RDS will be, or the database will be created in 2 availability zones. We also have the outputs section. So the outputs section provides important information about the resources created. The outputs can be used for referencing different types of data after we create the stack, or by other CloudFormation stacks we can reference the data, the output from this stack. We can see we're outputting the VPC ID, so the ID of the VPC that we're creating, the ID of the public, private subnets are being output as well, the EC2 instance ID, and the RDS instance endpoint is being output as well. It's now time to upload the CloudFormation template or YAML script into Amazon Web Services utilizing CloudFormation service. So we can see CloudFormation service is here under recently visited. If it doesn't show here for you, you can type it into this search bar here and retrieve it that way. But let's click on it here. We go create stack, choose existing template, upload a template file, choose the file, the YAML script in this case. There it is there. Go next. We now have the user interface that we have designed utilizing our script. So we can see we have the stack name that we need to type in. We have the VPC CIDR block, which was written here in the parameter label section. That's within the network configuration. So if we go up the top here, we can see network configuration and the VPC CIDR label there. CIDR block for the VPC is written down a bit further here. And we can see it's defaulted to the CIDR block 10.0.0.0/16. And that is the same for the other parameters, the public subnet, private subnet, and for the second availability zone, the public and private subnets. The EC2 configuration is once again the same. We've coded it here as a parameter group. We have the instance type, image ID and key name. So 1, 2, 3. We can see EC2 instance type is here, and beneath that EC2 instance type again, which is in the parameter section itself here. And it's defaulted to t2.micro. But we can change any of this because it is a parameter to whatever we like. But because we've set it up correctly, we don't need to change anything. The two items that we do need to change are the Amazon machine image, and we need to enter the key name. Let's get the AMI. I've opened up a second tab here. We need to go to EC2. We can either grab the AMI on the left hand side here, or we can select this button here. Then we can change the AMI here. I'm going to leave it as default and select the value here, the ID here. Go back to the CloudFormation, paste that in. We also need the key name pair. Going back to our EC2. And if we go down to the left hand side here, I've already created a key pair, and I've called it my key pair 4. So we need to type this in there. We're going to leave it as we've coded it, the t3.micro for the database, the RDS instance class, MySQL for the database engine. We're going to leave the master username for the RDS as admin, but we're going to type a master password in. We're going to go next. We've forgotten to input the stack name, so we need to put that in there. We can call it anything we like. Next. We're going to leave these as default. These are all optional settings we can adjust. Go next. It gives us a bit of a rundown of what we've made or created with the parameters. You can see these are all the parameters we've set up in the code. We're going to hit submit, and it's going to create that infrastructure using that code. It could take a couple of minutes. I'm going to pause the video and we'll see in a couple of minutes that it has created that infrastructure. The CloudFormation template script has now completed. We can see we have a create complete here and a create complete here. We might need to refresh the button sometimes here to get this to display. Our events screen here shows us the status of the creation as it goes through setting it all up and running that script. If there's any errors, it'll show in red on the right hand side here. We can see the event list starts at the very beginning when we initiate the script, all the way to completion when the script is completed and the system is at steady state. We can see that the infrastructure has been created by going into AWS, selecting the VPC, then your VPC. Here is the VPC that we created. It has the subnets and private subnets here with the associated security groups. We also have the EC2 instance. Here. We have the RDS instance here. And the internet gateway is in the VPC. So gateways, internet gateways is here. We can also delete the stack by going into CloudFormation. We can see the stack is here. If we select it and go delete, we can also update the stack here. But if we want to delete the stack, we simply check delete and check delete. And that will start the delete operation. This will take some time depending on how much infrastructure has been developed. That completes the CloudFormation operations in AWS.